Good evening, everybody. We're just waiting for more people to join. We've got almost 200 people registered for the webinar tonight, so we just got to give it a little bit of time. So we'll start in about 30 seconds. Okay, good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Aero South Africa webinar in conjunction with Safety First Aviator. The webinar is titled Calling All Aviators to Stabilize Your Approach. My name is Neil Piper, the head of content for Messi Frankfurt, and it gives me great pleasure to introduce Annelie Reynolds. She's a portfolio director of Messi Frankfurt, South Africa, and is also the show director of Aero South Africa to address you. Annelie, you're looking great tonight. Over to you. The floor is yours.
Thanks, Neil. As Neil mentioned, I am Annelie Reynolds and I'm the show director for Aero South Africa. As the COVID-19 pandemic lingers, it's become almost impossible to host successful in-person business-to-business events. This has led to adapting to new technology available to us to stay in touch and connected with the rest of the world. Apart from this, COVID-19 has also had an impact on the mental health of many, and we realize that these Safety First Aviator webinars assist our general aviation industry in this regard. We focus on relevant themes and touch on topics that might not always be easy to discuss with your fellow colleagues. The general aviation industry is also far from where it was in 2019 before COVID-19 struck. And with these webinars, we endeavor to keep the industry connected and assist where most necessary. Safety, tips on weather prediction, mental well-being, as well as what to do when you find yourself in trouble when flying your aircraft of choice. We have also launched the Aero South Africa virtual marketplace last year, where we have some information on general aviation products and services. As an added bonus, we load these Safety First Aviator webinars to the platform to enable you to rewind and watch again. If you have not yet registered on this free-to-access platform, please do so by pointing your browser to virtualaerosouthafrica.co.za. That's virtualaerosouthafrica.co.za, and just fill out the short registration form where you'll receive an email with further instructions. And now, I am extremely excited to hear what advice and knowledge our panel of speakers have to share with you tonight. So, Neil, excuse the pun, it's time for takeoff.
Hey, Annelie, you've been working on that. I'm proud of you. That was really good.
Thanks.
Annelie, I think just from your intro, I think the three key things for me, I think it's driving that connection. I think we're all crying out for that connection with each other. I think it's all about relevance. And I think that's something that the team here tries to do, is come up with topics that are relevant, that can have meaningful impact to people, and promote safety. It's all about safety and trying to save people's lives at this time. So I think those are the three most important things that you mentioned. But enough from the two of us, I think. Annelie, I think it's now time to hand over to the big guns. And it's now my pleasure to introduce Fran of Pilot Insurer, who will moderate the webinar tonight and will formally introduce all our speakers. Fran is the founder and MD of Pilot Insurer, a specialist and boutique advice firm focusing on investment and risk cover for pilots. Fran always brings a fresh approach to these webinars and keeps them light, even though the subject is of utmost importance. And I think, Fran, to be able to do that, it's quite a feat. So, you know, you've got a wonderful phrase and you've got a wonderful approach to life. And I think it rubs off on everybody in these webinars. So thank you for hosting these webinars for us. And as always, it's a pleasure to introduce you. So over to you, Franz.
Thanks, Neil. Paycheck is coming your way. That was beautiful. Thanks, man. Good evening, everybody. It's great to be here again. Nice to see all the familiar names. Wish it was familiar faces. And I've got a very positive outlook of what's going on in GA now, because it's really GA we're discussing here. And maybe it's just my high from this last weekend's President's Trophy Air Race. We managed to get that back up and running, 60 odd aircraft racing each other over 2 days. If you're an aviator nut, that's the place to be. That's where you want to be. So coming off of a high, I don't see anything wrong with the world. Everything's peachy and beautiful for where I'm sitting. I love these kind of webinars. And even though sometimes it feels like it's repetitive and it feels like we're almost drilling the same message home, I think it's because the people that have been around long enough, people like Sankey, who's seen the other end more often than not, just gets a real grasp and understanding and feeling of what it is that make things go wrong. And earlier we were talking a little bit about culture. And I was reminded that by Kobus Turin that it's actually all got to do with culture and aviation culture. And I thought it was very cool. Carolyn Cole was one of our new speakers tonight. Really look forward to hearing her talk. She actually came up with tonight's topic, calling all aviators to stabilize your approach. So really look forward to what she's going to say. But a housewarming before we get started. I think you know where the toilet is, so that's good. Phone someone for a cup of coffee or just shout. Sit with us for the next hour and a half. Take some of the things in. Hopefully you learn something. Makes you a bit of a better aviator. Question and answer sessions, we leave that to the end as we go along with each speaker. Please, just type in what your question is. We've got people in the back end to pick it up, so don't worry about that. We've come a long way from our first one where I was trying to do multitask and do everything at the same time. So that's really good. Guys, again, just welcome. Thank you for being here. The program, we're going to run through the program first. Sankey White's going to chat to us, then Lauren Smith, Carolyn Cole, and then Ari Levine. And they've each got a really good presentation prepared for us. So I think let's jump into it. Sankey White's up first. I think Sankey needs, as I always say, probably out of everyone in the South African aviation world, probably needs the least amount of introduction. Sankey has been involved in search and rescue for 27 years and is currently the chief of the Aeronautical Rescue Coordination Center, and has been involved in aviation for 38 years. Sankey, we love you very much. Thank you for doing this with us. We really look forward to hearing what you have to say. We always learn so much.
Thank you. Can you see my screen?
I can't see your screen.
You can't.
Let's share, Sankey.
I did.
Okay.
Guys, this is where you go get that cup of coffee.
Can you see
It's
it
starting,
now?
it's starting, it's starting. Yes, guys, climbing up a cliff, I think. Is that your home screen?
Yep, indeed. Let me just make this now bigger. How do I do that?
Because we can see, what we can see now is, I think, the home screen of your computer. There we go. Now full screen that one, and then we off.
That good work.
Night flying,
Okay.
some tricks and tips. Is that what we're looking at?
Yes, that's what we're looking at.
Brilliant. Okay, leave it to you.
So, people, as you know, SASA is what I am, South African Search and Rescue. And the motto is still joining hands so others may live. And when we look at night flying, and I suppose this makes a lot of sense why we've gone with this topic, is we've had quite a few incidents with night flying. And maybe this is time that we just talk about this a little bit again, because I think it's quite exciting. Flying at sunset and later, as the days get shorter, pilots must sharpen their night flying skills and assess their personal minimums. And I just really want to give you some tips and tricks. Flying is flying, but night flying has its own quirks and considerations that are different from daytime. A little extra planning, a little extra training, practice, and provisioning makes all the difference. I'm going to give you some tricks and tips to help you have a safe, enjoyable experience while flying at night. People, from a search and rescue perspective, night flying is always difficult. You know, when you get that call in the middle of the night or late in the evening that somebody hasn't cancelled search and rescue, or they are, they are not where they're supposed to be. It's a little bit more scary because we don't necessarily have as much NVG equipment than we should have. But so I think let's just brush up a little bit on the night flying, specifically now in winter time when it's darker earlier. So please do a full pre-flight. No kick the tires, light the fires. The temptation to skip or skim over steps on the pre-flight is much higher at night when you are juggling a flashlight along with a ladder and a fuel cap. Still, remain disciplined and avoid cutting corners. Familiarize yourself with night flying illusions. Night flying illusions are common and can be deadly if not recognized and compensated for quickly. Learn how to identify and recover from all the tricks your senses can play on you in the dark. And I've seen that many times. It is quite scary. Carry several easy accessible flashlights. Multiple lights can be quickly and easily assessed in the dark, and it's a must in case of an in-flight lighting emergency during a night flight. I'm sure the person that yet to experience this is a brand new pilot. It's happened to all of us. Create a plan for fighting pilot fatigue. People, it is what it is. One is more tired at night. So all other factors being equal, pilots are more likely to get fatigued at night than during the day. Our circadian rhythms dictate that we will naturally get tired once the sun sets. Plan in advance so you will be prepared to remain alert. Allow a more generous fuel reserve. When making your fuel calculations, pad your fuel reserve a little more than you may choose to do for a day flight. This gives you ample buffer in case you become disorientated and need to backtrack. It also prevents the need for an extra night landing to refuel. And I've seen this before where we had to talk somebody down who was low on fuel, and when we eventually got him comfortable to do a night landing at a place where he could safely land, he had very, very little fuel. And I was just thinking to myself, in the Magaliesberg, if this went wrong, it would have been really, really sad. Check your cockpit lights. It's easy to overlook cockpit lighting if you are used to only flying during daylight. But when you are preparing your aircraft to fly at night, those cockpit lights are important. Choose the right set of cockpit lights to make sure that you can properly read your instruments. Select a higher cruise altitude. We always talk about some real estate up there. The old adage that altitude equals safety definitely applies here. If you suffer a mechanical emergency and need to land, it will take longer to find a suitable site in the dark than it would during the day. Give yourself time by giving yourself altitude. People, it's important that real estate up there, it makes good sense. Add hands-free portable lights. A headlamp, power caps, or a strap-on LED finger light are just a few of the innovative portable lighting choices you can use to supplement your cockpit lights and flashlights. These are all keep your hands free for flying while illuminating whatever you need to see in the cockpit. Plan a route that stays close to airports. People, really, this is important. Even if you would normally fly direct during the day for safety reasons, you may wish to plot a course that keeps you as close as possible to airports throughout the duration of your night flight. This provides more dedicated, safe emergency landing and decreases the potential for you needing to make an unplanned night landing in a remote location. Wear a rescue laser light. Keeping a rescue laser light on you could be a lifesaver if you were forced to make an emergency landing and needed to signal for help, or even if you simply needed to locate a reflective object in the dark. These lights can be seen up to 20 miles away at night and up to 3 miles away during the day. Watch out for icing conditions. While airplane de-icing and remaining alert to the potential for icing conditions is always important, remember, ice at night can be even more dangerous than during the day. In the dark, it is harder to see the ice beginning to accumulate, and without the sun to warm and help some sublimate a buildup, you could quickly run into trouble. Confirm destination airport operating hours and availability. If you fly in during the day, you naturally expect the airport to be open, fuel to be available, the control tower to be staffed, etc. Depending on the size and location of the airport, the same may not be true at night. Confirm all of these details prior to departure to avoid unpleasant surprises. Consider earning your instrument flight rating. Pilots can fly VFR at night, but pilots who have IFR training and experience will often find it easier to trust the instruments when flying in the dark because they're already used to it. I think it's a nice backup to have in any way. Know your lighting systems. The first time you come in for a night landing and see the jumble of lights below you, it can be disorientating. Before your flight, review the aircraft, airport, runway, and approach lights that you will see. Practice identifying them and review what each means. Preserve your night vision. Night vision is crucial for seeing objects outside. Guard it by adjusting the brightness of your lights to be as dim as possible while still allowing you to easily read instruments. For portable lighting, consider red filters or lights that have the option to select either red or white. Learn how to activate pilot-controlled lighting systems. Non-towered airports, or airports that are non-towered during the night, may have a pilot-controlled lighting system. These systems are usually activated by key your mic multiple times on the CTAF frequency. The number of times you key your up controls the lighting intensity. Since light turns off automatically 15 minutes after the activation, it's important to time your activation properly so you will have safely landed by the time the lights go on. People, it's important to know this. We had an incident not too long ago where we really had to get a lady safe on the ground that got herself into trouble. And the only airfield we could send it to didn't have did have one of these, but they were looking, or they were going to go into load shedding about 5 minutes before she was about to land. So we had to make a plan with all the CPF buckies we could find. So these things sometimes happens differently. Watch for blinking lights ahead. Even on a clear night, it can be challenging to see dangers ahead of you. Watch for telltale signs like stationary, non-flashing lights starting to blink. This could mean that there is something between you and those lights. That something could be a cloud, or if you are drifted off course, it could be terrain. Remain alert for this valuable indicators of potential trouble. Preserve your night vision. When planning a nighttime visual flight rules flight, follow instrument flight rules practices, such as climbing on a known safe course until well above surrounding terrain. Choose a cruising altitude that provides terrain separation similar to IF flights. File a flight plan. People, please, it's your insurance policy. Talk to ATC. Your ATC is your eyes and your ears when there are dangers you have not been alerted to in terms of other known aircraft. At the end of the day, there's always a team standing by to save you when something goes wrong. And please take a photograph of this and keep it forever. These are the guys and girls that will take care when something goes wrong. And then a thank you, my dearest aviation family. In exactly 4 days, my life as the ARCC chief comes to an abrupt end. Please know that I will never leave search and rescue and will find a way back to be with you. But for now, always fly good and don't suck. And if you ever need a wing hacks, I'm a phone call away. I will always love you with all my heart.
Thank you, Sankey. That's really nice to hear about some of the night flying stuff. And before you run away, I think you know how much we all appreciate you. And you've certainly been around for as long as I can remember for my short tenure in aviation. And we do share some personal moments of me having a little minor incident in the mountain and you phoning me before I could even find my phone. So that number that flashed up on Sankey, please guys remember that. Write that number down. Sankey, and I know you're leaving that exact position, but I'm sure pretty soon you're going to be back on the horse again, saving our butts when we need you the most. So thank you very much, Sankey. Guys, if you have any questions for Sankey, I think this is a really great opportunity to use it while she still has that official title. And she's available for these webinars that we do. Thanks, Sankey. That's great. Guys, next we've got Lauren Smith. Now, Lauren has been, definitely around for 6 to 7 years, not 67, 6 to 7 years, from what I can remember, always helping us out with on the SAPFA side, just with weather predictions, especially on race days. Obviously very important. She's a meteorologist, and I know she started off in Joburg, but's now stationed in Cape Town, where there's better weather, I suppose less work. That's probably why you moved to Cape Town. And a big passion for aviation. And she's busy with a master's degree in the topic of clear air turbulence, what I think is could be pretty interesting. And we absolutely honored to have you as part of our team, Lauren. Thank you very much. Let's hear what you have to say.
Thanks so much, Franz. Yes, he's pretty much said it all. I'm just going to quickly share my screen. Okay, can everyone see that?
Almost.
How about now?
Perfect.
Okay, great stuff. Yeah, also just from my side, what a privilege. Sankey, also a privilege to have been working with you and learning from you as well. And the rest of the panelists, always a pleasure. I'd like to start off sharing a quick video with you guys. And this time around, for those that maybe has seen this before, maybe think to yourself, what would you have done to not be in this situation?
Runway 35, clear for takeoff.
The sky is overcast and the visibility poor. That reported 8-kilometer visibility looks more like 3, and you can't judge the height of the cloud. Your altimeter says you're at 1,500 feet, but your map tells you there's local terrain as high as 1,200 feet. There might even be a tower nearby, because you're not sure just how far off course you are. But you've flown into worse weather than this, so you press on. You find yourself unconsciously easing back just a bit on the controls to clear those none too imaginary towers. With no warning, you're in the soup. You peer so hard into the milky white mist that your eyes hurt. You fight the feeling in your stomach. You swallow, only to find your mouth dry. Now you realize you should have waited for better weather. The meeting was important, but not that important. Somewhere a voice is saying, you should have turned back. You now have 178 seconds to live. Your aircraft feels on an even keel, but your compass turns slowly. You push your rudder pedal and add pressure to the controls to stop the turn, but this feels unnatural, so you quickly return the controls to their original position. That feels better. But now your compass is turning a little faster and your airspeed is increasing slightly. You scan your instrument panel for help, but you don't find any. It all looks unfamiliar. You're sure this is just a bad spot. You'll break out in a few minutes. But you don't have a few minutes. You now have 100 seconds to live. You glance at your altimeter and are shocked to see it unwinding. You're already down to 1,200 feet. Instinctively, you pull back on the controls, but the altimeter still unwinds. The engine is into the red, and the airspeed's almost there too. You have 45 seconds to live. Now you're sweating and shaking. There must be something wrong with the controls. Pulling back only moves that airspeed indicator deep into the red. You can hear the wind tearing at the aircraft. You have 10 seconds to live. Suddenly, you see the ground. The trees rush up at you. You can see the horizon if you turn your head far enough, but it's at an unusual angle. You're almost inverted. You open your mouth to scream.
Now that's something that we don't want to happen. So what tips would you have used or needed that Sankey gave you? En route weather, I'd like to share two of my favorite tools where you can find en route weather. The first one is the aviation website, driven by the South African Weather Service, and then Windy TV. Both of them are free, and with only these two platforms, you've actually got 5 different models. So the aviation website runs the UM model, which is a regional model, meaning it's a very fine resolution, about 4.5 kilometers. And then Windy TV has ECMWF, GFS, ICON, which are all course models, and as well another one called Michu Blue. I just want a quick preview of all the goodies that you can get on the website. Color-coded TAFs, and which is pretty cool also, is that you can hover over one of the cloud types, for example, scattered, and it actually decodes it for you. You can see your warnings, takeoff data, and another tab, what's one of my favorites, the Aerosport. Under Central Interior, you can get cloud cover. At those certain times, you can get cloud-based weather predictions. You can even get your cloud amount. So in other words, if it's going to be scattered or overcast or broken type effect. Another one is your spot graph map. It starts off with this window here with South Africa with all those red dots. You can literally click on all of them, and it brings out a vertical cross section of that coordinate, and you can see your winds as well as relative humidity. A thunderstorm probability tab as well, which will depict areas where thunderstorms are probable. So that, along with your cloud amount, could actually work quite well. Observational tab, again, your METAR is colored coded. You can even see your radars, satellites, as well as your webcams, which are quite handy, especially when that low cloud starts pushing in along that escarpment there by the northeastern parts of the country. So, for example, here is Kruger, and you can see that mountain in the far end. That is actually the eastern escarpment. So you'll be able to see where your cloud base is and what it's up to. Domestic tab, all sorts of goodies there. You can get your SIG charts, Please remember to click on your most recent, because then you'll be able to see the most recent chart, which is updated, because the charts get updated every 4 hourly. If you are clicking on a certain hour, remember to look at the date. Also, your wind charts, you get your block format and your barred format, and it's above mean sea level. Then your last 2 tabs, flight briefing and international, under national advisories. So if there are cyclones that's, for example, coming down the Mozambican channel and they do enter our FIR, the information gets published there, as well as volcanic ash advisories. You can even make your own flight document with all the type of weather things that you need for your flight plan, and you can print it. Another nice tool is your graphic SIGMET and AirMet tab. Very nice. You can actually zoom in, you can click on those little bobs and it will actually show you, exactly all the information. International SIG charts as well. This is one over Europe, for example, and there's multiple regions. It's good to be familiar with these things. All right, so then windy, which is very cool about it, or handy, is that you can compare the models at once. So there's a comparison between 3 of them, and it's also got a nice feature of satellite imagery. And you can also have layers, you can see your cloud things, and you can play. So it's a very nice tool. So why would you want to compare the models? Okay, so here's an example. So it's 6 days ahead, it's Tuesday. We've got ECM of WF, model prediction here with your high, and we've got a low that's formed over the southeastern parts of the country. In your upper air, there's a trough forming, so it's a cold front that moved over, bringing us some snow over Lesotho, some onshore rain there by the south coast. GFS, however, looks like this for the exact same time. It's a lot different. The system has moved on, it's now over the eastern part. Your high has already started to ridge. You've got that onshore already along the eastern coastal region. So this is now not only, sometimes we actually get a system forecasting discrepancy, but here we have a timing discrepancy. And it's a big area difference of where these 2 systems are placed. The third model looks like this. So we've got the first model and the third one actually a little bit more in agreement towards the first one. So you've got a 2 out of 3. So that's a nice 80% chance. So to use these models in conjunction with each other, make an average of what you are seeing so that you are moving more into a probabilistic type of thinking than a deterministic where you're looking at only one thing, only one app, only one forecast, for example, and it says yes, no. Use what you have and get to know them. So for example, why would you want to look at satellite imagery? They're back in the past, normally 15 to even 30 minutes in the past. So I'd like to share with you guys. Actually, this week was actually textbook. This is on the 25th of this week. We've got a cold front that moved over, an actually very nice textbook example of dynamically driven thunderstorms. So here's your front going over, and it's going curling into the southeastern parts of the country. You have your cirrus clouds. You can see your scallops forming here. You can identify where your surface jet stream will be. You can identify where your jet will be. You can even identify your prefrontal conditions, which is very stable. There's not enough moisture in the mid-level to actually form our typical prefrontal thunderstorms. What we got early in the early in the year rather not air. So it's good to be able to identify features. And if you are planning a flight from Pretoria to Bloemfontein, you can actually play the image and actually start timing it. So to put that into theory, or the pictures that we always used to see, that cold front is definitely between step 3 and 4 in the stages there in the top left corner. Top right corner, we can definitely see those scallops. We can identify where our moderate and severe turbulence will be located in the upper air. We can find our jets, and of course our mountain waves in that stable sector, that which was in that central to the northeastern part of the country, and then over the escarpment there by KZN. Here's another cold front example in terms of that moisture being in that mid-level section just in front of your cold front there. So as you can see, I'm talking about this area. So this is the central to northeastern parts of the country. Here's your cold front. And coincidentally, the 24th of the 5th last year, we also had a cold front. Here's your nice cold air Qs. There's your low. You can identify where's your, you can identify that here is Lesotho, because there's your mountain waves. You've got your northwesterly winds going over those mountains of Lesotho. It's banking up against those mountains of the Drakensbergs of KZN, the escarpment running up here. As you can see, it's got a greenish color. This is altocumulus. It holds supercooled water droplets. And why is it dangerous? Because your supercooled water droplets results into moderate to severe icing. So it's good to know where altocumulus forms, not only turbulence. And last but not least, out of interstate, this is today's satellite image. Again, very stable conditions in the atmosphere. Again, prefrontal, here's your our prefrontal cloud band already starting to approach this afternoon. For the southwestern part, we're expecting rain for overnight. And here's those northwesterly winds coming in. And what I want to take you to your attention is this rotor cloud. Look at that straight line. Here's another one. It's just thick cirrus on top of it, so it's a bit difficult to see them all. But here's another one. Here's a few going around here, just over Graafrenet. Here's Beaufort West, just to give it a little bit more orientation. There's Sutherland. Here's Google Maps, just to show you that the theory is actually true, and you're actually seeing it live on the satellite images or real. In this region, right here, there's Beaufort West. Here's the southern high ground of Namakwa, and then there's that escarpment. And then you can exactly see where that rotor cloud is forming. This was a photo that I took, I'm not driving, on the way back from work in this week. And if you can follow my mouse, you can see there goes the wave, and it goes up and over. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is called a gravity wave. You can see that the cirrus cloud here is making like an inverted U type of shape. So that's your first wave. And then here you can see the waves again, and even in here, down at the bottom here. So here is your peninsula of the Western Cape. And you've got that rotary coming over. So it's going up, condensating, going down, condensing, going down. And that's what your wave is. And how does it look from the top? So this is at the exact same time, just from the top. Here's your gravity waves. You can see those lines even on the upper going this way. And then there was your mountain waves due to your escarpment. Yeah, that's all from me. Please, any questions is welcome. There's my email address if you feel you need to think a little bit more. But yeah, thank you for your time.
Thanks, Lauren. It's really cool to have a practical example like that. I love it that you took us through the websites. That's really great, because you sit and you want to plan these things, you want to do a proper job, but I think most people only really use one website to look at the weather coming up. I know I've definitely also done that in the past. I think it's really cool to use as much as information as you can. I think it just gets
remember to look outside and phone. You can always phone.
Yeah, that as well. Great stuff. Thanks, Lauren. I think we all learned quite a bit from that. Again, I love it how practical you made it. That was really cool. Thank you very much. So guys, this is very interesting. We've got a brand new panelist, Carolyn Cole. You're gonna excuse me for writing or for reading out her little bio for you guys. So Carolyn's the founder of Essential Pilot, and if she wants to, she can tell us a little bit more about that. She's a commercial pilot, a flight instructor, ground instructor, author, aviation blogger, and a general hangar snoop, which is probably what we're more interested in. She holds a BA honors in political science and international relations, and came to aviation later in life, following a successful career as a professional athlete in the sport of triathlon, where she held multiple national titles and represented South Africa at the elite level. This passion and discipline have translated into her love for GA and the development of female participation in the aviation sector. She's a firm believer that proper planning and self-discipline lead to safe flying experiences. And as a warbird fanatic, she dreams of flying inverted in her own machine. Now, I'm sure there's a couple of guys on here that can help her with this one. So if you own a warbird, you should be phoning Caroline to go inverted with you. Welcome. Thank you so much for joining us. And I think, tell us a little bit about Essential Pilot before you get into your presentation.
Okay, so hi France and hi everybody. Yeah, I really, like I said, I didn't originally come from an aviation background. So it's a continuous learning curve for myself, but it's something I've become really passionate about. So I actually started Essential Pilot was kind of a way of reaching out to students, and it was really a place to ask the dumb questions. And usually I was the one asking the dumb questions, and I would write articles on the dumb questions that I would ask myself. So, you know, I always feel that everybody in this, well, in general aviation should be encouraged to ask questions, and, you know, nothing should be laughed at, or because very often that's the way we learn. Yeah, so that's about it for me. At the end of my presentation, I have got my email, so if anybody wants to ask a dumb question or they're too shy to ask somebody else, please go ahead. I'm an expert at answering dumb questions. So
And do you have I mean, is there a website? Is there a blog?
yes.
Where can people find everything?
Yes, exactly. So it'll be all posted at the end, but it's essentialpilot.co.za.
Okay.
Yeah, and I've got a couple of books there as well, which I've written mostly to help our desperately trying to pass exams students. You all know who you are. So
never. Everyone passes it the first time.
Yeah,
Stop lying.
exactly. Yeah. So even the people with the PhDs are quite surprised when they fail the CAA exam. So, but anyway, I'm always open to helping, and if I don't know the answer to the question, everybody knows who knows me will know that I will do everything I can to get the answer for you. So, yeah. So
Brilliant.
Can I go ahead?
Absolutely. We all look forward to hearing what you have to say.
Okay, let me just find my screen. Okay, just let me know, has everybody got my screen?
100%. You're good to go.
Okay, so the topic for this evening is about stabilizing your approach. So there's two aspects to this. It's actually about flying a stable approach, and it's also about stabilizing your attitude to approaches as well. Let me just see, just to move. Sorry. Okay, so a question I asked myself, are most accidents caused by pilot error or aircraft failure? We would like to think it's aircraft failure, but I'm sure France, being in the insurance industry, will tell you the opposite to this. So most accidents are actually pilot error accidents. Up to 65% of all accidents are actually pilot error, despite the fact that we all think we're brilliant pilots. ultimately, when these accidents are analyzed, it does come down to pilot error. Only 18% of those accidents are mechanical issues, and then 17% are other or unknown incidences. So if we look at these pilot error accidents, and we look at the pilot composition of them, 47% of these pilot-induced error accidents are private pilots or PPL pilots. 24% of those are commercial pilots, and 15% are airline pilots. So given the amount of time that the guys fly, you would think airline pilots are flying a lot, so are commercial pilots. So it also has to do with training as well. So the more often the guys are flying, generally it seems to be the fewer accidents they are having. Sorry. Okay, so we can ask, were these accidents caused because of weather? Maybe poor decision making regarding weather. So if we look at the statistics on the causes of accidents being related to weather, 86% of pilot error accidents actually occurred in VMC conditions, which is quite a lot. 67% of those was fatal. IMC and night flights are more likely to be fatal, but those are actually relatively smaller in numbers. So interesting. Then we ask the question, which phase of flight are these accidents most likely to occur? So research actually shows that the takeoff and landing phases are statistically more dangerous than any phase of flight. 49% of all fatal accidents happened during the flight, descent, and landing phases of the average flight, while 14% of all those fatal accidents actually happened during takeoff and initial climb. So most of these accidents are actually landing accidents. And if we talk about landing accidents, these would include things such as loss of control, CFIT, in other words, controlled flight into terrain, runway excursions, you know, those little visits to the farm next door, stalls, hard landings, tail strikes, undershooting, overshooting. All of these are actually considered to be landing accidents. Unstabilized approaches have been identified as the causal factor in most of these landing accidents and incidences, something which is quite unfamiliar to a lot of VFR pilots. So what exactly is an unstabilized approach? An unstabilized approach is an approach during which the pilot of an aircraft does not maintain certain parameters. So these parameters include speed, the rate of descent, the lateral flight path, the vertical flight path, landing configuration, and the power setting. So if these factors are not all exactly set up the way they should be, it leads to an unstable approach. Okay, and landing clearance as well is another one. Not obtaining the landing clearance. So we have to ask the question, why do pilots actually continue to land from an unstable approach? Because remember, most of these accidents are occurring on landing. So why do they continue when they find themselves in an unstable situation? So a go-around from an unstable approach has been recognized as a proven risk mitigation to reduce the number of approach and landing incidents and accidents. But the compliance rate from pilots is close to nil when it comes to doing go-arounds. So according to a Flight Safety Foundation study, only 3% of unstable approaches result in a go-around, which is frighteningly low. pilots fail to go around in 97% of all unstable approaches. So then we ask, why do pilots not execute a go-around from an unstable approach? Already just seeing these numbers, why are they not doing go-arounds? So first factor is reduced situational awareness. So certain conditions will actually reduce the pilot's awareness and therefore their sense of risk. VMC conditions is especially one of those because weather's good, think it looks fantastic. And then on the approach, the pilots tend to be a little bit more complacent than they would if the conditions were a bit worse. So VMC conditions tend to relax the pilot's situational awareness. Also previous landings from unstable approaches. So the guys think, oh, well, I've landed it before, I can land it again. I'm used to doing this, I do it all the time. Task and landing orientated. So when I say landing orientated, that is what our task is. It is to land the aircraft. So when we are getting onto the approach, in effect, 95% of the flight is actually complete. So doing a go-around actually poses a psychological barrier to completing this task that you've assigned yourself of landing the aircraft. Another interesting one, ATC instructions. Controllers can actually cause pilots to go unstable, just based on their instructions. So things such as maintain speed. So now you've got a big jet behind you and the controller's trying to get you on the ground. You've got the Mango flight sitting behind you and they say maintain speed. Yet maybe that speed that you've got set is too fast for your landing. So pilots often feel compelled to complete the landing so as not to disrupt the traffic, because I mean, who wants to mess up the whole, the controller's traffic pattern, so they've told me to land, now I'm going to land, like regardless of what they've told me, I'm going to land. Dangerous situation. Then something which is particularly interesting to me, it's actually pilot training. During initial PPL training, the call to go around is usually made by the instructor. So the instructor can see, oh, this person's landing is looking a little bit pear-shaped here. And then you say to them, oh, go around now, go, it's not working out, go around. We're not necessarily actually helping people in this situation. So students usually do not practice the decision-making themselves. So as instructors, we need to actually get these guys to decide for themselves. So you need to give them the parameters and get them to make the go-around call themselves, rather than as instructors saying, go around now, because the student then doesn't always know, well, why are we having to go around? They need to be able to determine this themselves. Another interesting thing that I've come across is also the issue of a rejected landing brief. So very often in training, pilots are actually trained to talk themselves through a rejected takeoff. Before we enter the runway, we usually give ourselves the rejected takeoff brief, or at least I hope most of you do. And that actually prepares us for an abnormality or an event that would occur on the takeoff. But looking at it, I've never seen a rejected landing brief. And I'm starting to think this is also what is leading, which could assist us in reducing these landing accidents as well. Oh, sorry. Correction. Okay, so what is a stabilized approach? So a lot of the VFR guys don't necessarily know this term as to what a stable approach is. It's taught very often, IFR training, airline guys know this well, but not often VFR pilots. So a stabilized approach is characterized by constant angle and constant rate of descent approach profile. So ending near the touchdown point. For our VFR pilots, all criteria must be met by 500 feet above aerodrome level. Okay, that is if your circuit altitude is 1,000 feet. There are some airfields, one where I fly, for example, we only have a circuit altitude of 700 feet. So you would need to adapt your stable approach point based on your circuit altitude, but for a normal regular circuit, a 500 foot above ground level should be your stable point. So for VFR approaches. So there's a couple of critical things we are looking at. We're looking at being on track, on path, with the correct speed, correct power setting, and configured for the landing. So there are a large number of benefits to the stable approach. We're still not guaranteeing you a perfect landing, but the benefits of consciously monitoring your approach are already going to improve your skill level and improve your level of a safe landing. So your situational awareness is going to be improved tremendously because you have specific things that you are focusing on this approach. Your horizontal and vertical flight path is now actively monitored by you, the pilot. You are actively monitoring those. Your airspeed trend awareness is also improved, and your energy management of your aircraft is also better controlled. So I'm starting to see, well, there's a lot in it for me here by giving this a try. A good landing rarely follows a poor approach. So if you can already nail these factors, you've got a better chance of making a good landing, which of course everybody wants to do. Nobody wants to do a crappy landing. So looking specifically on track, what that means is we need to be lined up with the runway, within 20 degrees of the runway heading, within 10 degrees of the runway center line. The reasons we give those degrees is because obviously you have to deal with wind drift sometimes. So wind drift is appropriately managed with your control inputs. So we understand that, but there are your limits. You set those for yourself. On path, so what this means is a descent rate that will assist you in maintaining a 3-degree glide slope. The maximum descent rate we are looking for is 1,000 feet per minute. Okay, I had a big debate about this, but remember, it depends if you are doing a powered approach or a glide approach. In the case of a glide approach, you may need a descent rate of 1,000 feet per minute. But ideally, powered approach, you want a maximum descent rate of about 500 feet per minute. Also, keep your aiming point. That needs to stay put in your windscreen. So if you're using your numbers or the threshold markings, wherever you've got your aiming point, you need to keep that put in your windscreen. It doesn't move on that approach. Also remember that the higher your ground speed, the higher your descent rate. So you're going to descend quicker. On speed, okay, this one is always critical because this is the one that's going to really mess up your landings too. So that obviously depends on your aircraft manufacturer. But essentially you want the correct altitude and power setting to maintain the speed. That is important. Definitely a speed that is no less than VREF, which is your landing reference speed, plus 5 knots. And then, of course, configured for landing. So here it also depends on the aircraft, but generally it's always going to include gear down, of course. Flaps as required for the conditions. Your propeller position. So generally you want your propeller set for a go-round. Everything must be set in the anticipation of doing a go-round. We want to be prepared for that go-round. Your mixture, same thing, set for the go-round, and carb heat. So if you have an aircraft that's not fuel injected, then you want it set on cold. And at that stage, you also want your landing checks complete so that you are focusing entirely on the actual landing. So at 500 foot, we've got all of this sorted, and then we can focus more on the actual landing. So then the question, if any of these conditions are not met at 500 foot, what do we do? So a lot of people say, oh, we'll just fix it. I can just, I'll just swing the tail around. I'll get the nose lined up. That is the wrong attitude. This is the attitude that is causing us to have bad landings that we sometimes get away with. And there's going to be a time where we're not going to get away with it. So if any of these conditions are not met at 500 foot, we go around. And this needs to be programmed into our mentality that this is what we will do. So in the situation that we are now below 500 feet, so now we've passed the stable approach point. We've said, okay, 500 foot was my stable approach point. This does not mean that we are now committed to land. It doesn't mean that now we have to land because we were stable at 500 foot. It's quite the opposite. If your approach destabilizes after the 500 foot stable approach, there is no question as to what you do. It's going to be a go around. It's okay to do a go around. It's better than smashing your plane. So yeah, the conclusion is I'm also looking at wanting everyone to stabilize your approach to the way you do things. So first of all, make your stable approach at 500 foot your standard operating procedure. You want this as your personal airline standard operating procedure. This is what you will do. It's a good idea to brief your passengers and yourself before doing the approach that a go around is a normal procedure and it may be executed. Because if you've got passengers with you, the temptation to force the landing is there. So if you tell passengers, okay, on the approach, if we happen to have a wind shear or anything, please don't be alarmed. We're just going to go around and we'll come back for a landing, another landing. It's just for safety, but let them know beforehand. It takes the pressure off yourself too. Then also train yourself to respond immediately to unstable conditions. Now that you have the parameters, you've got the tools, it's not guesswork. If you've got the set parameters, train yourself to respond immediately. Essentially, at the end of the day, we want to have the same professional attitude that airline pilots are required to have. We want the same thing for general aviation as well. Okay, so that's me. So you're welcome to send me an email at any time. Yeah, there's my email address. That's my website with my blog, and there's some hangar snooping in there too. So if you want to see some aircraft, you're most welcome to have a look or send me some interesting aircraft of your own. I'm always keen to see them.
Excellent. Thanks, Carol. Okay, guys, so there, essentialpilot.co.za. Type that in somewhere, take a screenshot, write it down, go have a look. I'm sure there's a lot of fun stuff in there. Caroline, I think that was amazing. I love how practical you made it, and it didn't feel like it was a boring PowerPoint presentation. I think well done, excellent job. I can hear you also talking from a little bit of experience there.
Yeah, well, for sure. Like I said, there's never something that I look into that I haven't done myself. So, the first place you start looking at is actually yourself. So, yep, definitely.
Yeah, that's great. And I love the comments. I mean, all the comments were more or less along the lines of, it should be taught that a go-around is normal procedure. And I love that where you said just from a psychological point of view, on, let's say, short finals or finals, you at 95% of task completion. And that's almost like a mental block, to not do a go around. I love that. I don't know why I've never thought about it that way.
Absolutely. Well, it is because we are. And I mean, most of us are goal-orientated people.
Yes.
Pilots, are generally that type of personality. So we are. And I completely agree with you with regards to the training. And I think that's definitely something that we are trying, that needs to be put in place. As I said, we've got Rejected takeoff briefs. Why are we not having rejected landing briefs? It's not commonplace. So yeah, I really hope that this thing grows. It started off as an easy topic, and then the more I delved into it, the more I realized there's a lot missing here and a lot we need to work on. So yeah, watch the space.
Brilliant. We look forward to journeying that with you and following and seeing how we can progress with this, and obviously supporting you where we can. Thanks very much. I thought that was a brilliant presentation.
Yes, thanks you. And thank you to everybody that came and my students. Yeah, I told you not to ask any questions. I'll answer you tomorrow. So.
Yeah, come on, put her on the spot. Ask some stuff you know she doesn't know.
No.
Excellent. Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Guys, on to the next person, Ari Levine from Mayday SA. Now, I know Ari's been a GA pilot for many years, 31 years, is a IT professional in information security, and a long time student of aviation safety. And he's representing Mayday SA, and Ari, I think you've been there since 2018.
That's right, Frans. Bit intimidating having to talk after all of these excellent presentations.
I know. I'm glad I'm not you. I just need to. I just passed the baton.
Well, hopefully I don't put everyone to sleep as things wind down for the evening.
No, you won't. So tell us a bit. I mean, we all know exactly what Mayday SA is, and I think roughly about 20 to 30% of the people, the participants, have heard you speak about Mayday SA. But for the rest, for the newcomers, what's Mayday SA all about?
So Mayday is a group of aviation participants, pilots, ATCs, and some others. And we basically are out to support anybody involved in aviation through any sort of problem or crisis, whether that is assistance following a critical incident, or whether that is any other sort of problem. We help people to deal with stress and solve problems, basically. So if anybody needs to talk to anybody about a problem, whether it's aviation related or not, if there's a stress in your life that you're not sure how to deal with, because you're talking to people who are involved in aviation, we've got a bit of a perspective on some of the unique issues that pilots and aviation professionals deal with. And it's completely confidential. There's no reporting to anybody. There are no notes that are kept. We don't have a back channel to any of the employers or to CAA or to your AME. And really it's a shoulder to lean on, and somebody to talk to if you need to.
Yeah, excellent. So I've also got a bit of a personal story with Mayday SA. I was involved in an aircraft accident about 4 years ago, and I got stuck in that moment a little bit, where you can just cut it short, just where you can see the runway, you're cleared for finals, but you're never going to make it there, and you got to make the decision to turn around. And what was really great, just so that everyone knows really how it works, is I got a phone call from somebody at Mayday SA, which, I mean, at that stage, I didn't know Mayday SA actually existed. And I think Sankey put them on to me. And these 3 or 4 gentlemen who were extremely senior people in the aviation world reached out, had a couple of cups of coffee with them. And within 2-3 weeks, because I had someone to discuss the accident with, who comes from that world, and it wasn't just a random person who would never be able to understand, you know, what you go through. That was a massive help for me. You know, so, and I think since that day, I've been a huge supporter of Mayday SA. So I can definitely see, you know, that you guys bring massive value. But we're not here to talk about that. Ari, let's hear about your presentation. I'd love to hear it.
Okay, well, I'll keep it brief. So as you can see, it's talking about social media, and you'll see from the title that caution, and you'll understand why hopefully a little bit further along. First of all, if you need to get hold of Mayday, there are all of the contact details. Bit ironic this, I realized as I was reviewing this presentation that talking about social media and what does our contact say, we're on Facebook. So it just goes to show that the social media thing is incredibly prevalent, and it is really important. So that's the formal definition of social media. I think we all know really what it is. It's a way in which we can connect with others, and there are lots of different social media platforms. People tweet, people Facebook, people post on Instagram. Most of us use WhatsApp, they're Pinterest people, and the list just gets longer and longer every time you look. And that can be a little bit intimidating. So social media enables us to connect to others wherever they are. And I think one of the big advantages that we've all made use of through COVID has been the ability to talk to friends and family when we've been isolating, when people have been separated from us through distance, they've not been able to travel. And that is really an incredibly important social advantage. And it's a great contributor to people's mental well-being. It gives us easy communication. Most of the time, it's low cost or even no cost. It allows us to share information and news in real time or near real time. And it also enables us to interact with people from all over with similar interests. And that's a big deal in the aviation community. There are a number of local websites that I'm sure people are familiar with, Avcom being one of them. For the general aviation people, we've got all of the various type clubs, the Cessna Pilots Association, the Cirrus Owners and Pilots Association, and there are also more industry-focused ones like the Professional Pilots Rumor Network. So it really gives us an opportunity to broaden our social circles and to learn a lot. So it's not a negative picture by any stretch of the imagination. However, as is usual with people, we've figured out a new technology, but we haven't yet figured out how best to use it, and that results in there being issues. There's an awful lot of disinformation floating around on social media, and that is people deliberately providing false information in order to further their own viewpoints or their own commercial or personal interests. There's also misinformation, which is just purely people making mistakes. And that's fairly typical in the response to a natural disaster, hurricanes, earthquakes, trying to get hold of somebody. There's a certain amount of misinformation that floats around. Fear of missing out means that people end up spending a lot more time on social media than perhaps is always wise, especially for the younger people. Those of us with kids are aware that there's an awful lot of bullying, and kids need some safe space. And social media means that kids and others can be bullied 24/7, 365. There's no respite. It's not like when most of us were at school, where you'd come home and your tormentor would not be joining you. They can message you at 3 a.m. So little piece of advice there. Kids should not have their devices in their rooms with them at night. Give them some space. There's also a lack of privacy. People tend to sometimes overshare, and there are consequences to that as well. Telling people that you're going to be away on holiday is maybe all very fine and well if you're telling your immediate friends and family, but it's not quite so cool if that is on a public Facebook post and people know that your house is going to be standing empty for the next 2 weeks. There's also a lot of overload. People spend a lot of time on social media, and there is a lot of psychological techniques in use to keep you on social media. And that often leads to distraction and procrastination. And people often spend a lot more time on social media than they think they are or that they really intend to. And I'm using the term in its purest form. There are trolls out there, and that's a term used for people who get pleasure from disrupting others. It's a bit distinct from bullying, but it can overlap. There are an awfully large number of trolls. Or rather, should I say, the effect of the trolls that are out there is much larger than their number. They can be very disruptive to civil conversation. So some general considerations. Please remember, everyone, the internet is forever. Once you post something, it's there for good. And in many cases, trying to take something down or delete it merely draws attention to what it is that you're trying to delete. And that leads to something called the Streisand Effect, which I'm not going to go into. You can Google it. Truth is very elastic on the internet. There used to be a saying, on the internet, nobody knows you're a dog. And it's now, nobody knows that you're a Russian dog. People are not always who they seem to be on the net. There's a layer of misdirection. And on the other hand, that statement is not true, because if you know what you're doing, it's reasonably simple to figure out who's behind something. And I'm not so much saying it's easy when it's a nation state, but if it's Joe Bloggs down the road, unless he really knows his security, you'll be able to figure it out. Your statements on the internet and on social media can have real world consequences. There are an increasing number of examples of people who have been sued for slander, for making libelous accusations. Employers are entitled to dismiss people who slate their employer on the net. So be very, very careful about what you post. Something that people don't often consider is who pays for Facebook, who pays for Twitter. Very often, the service, the costs of running the service are defrayed by the sale of the data of the users. And that means that you should be understanding the terms and conditions of the social media sites that you spend the most time on. And sometimes, even if you pay, you are still part of the product. If you want to see a really interesting example of that, Google rides of glory and be prepared to be shocked about just how much information people can find out about you from your Uber information. But most importantly of all, we all tend to lose perspective that we are not just communicating with a social media platform, we actually communicating with real people on the other side of that. And research shows that as little as 37% of information is conveyed by words only. It is very easy to misconstrue written words. So think very, very carefully about the tone and how your posts can be misinterpreted. A lot of the time people are talking past one another and they're not actually communicating, and there is no intention to hurt, but we're all very good at taking offense. Think before you post. From an aviation point of view, that's really important when it comes to things like speculating on the causes and the surrounding factors of an accident or an incident. There are lots of benefits to dissecting what could have gone wrong, and lots of learnings that can be taken away so that people who are hurt or worse and are paying for learning in blood are not lost in vain. But please, everyone, remember that friends and family members of the people involved often read your posts. Be sensitive in what you say. And remember as well that there are very few incidents or accidents where people set out to have an incident or an accident. I think it's vitally important. Most of the time, most incidents, most accidents, the question we should be asking is, how could it have been me making that mistake? And there's some that it's not going to be easy. For example, most of us know better than to violate the 8 hours or 10 hours or 12 hours bottle to throttle rule. But what is your crosswind limit? Why is that your crosswind limit? And that's just an example. Something else that people tend to do is they're very quick to look at and forward videos and images that are potentially very disturbing of the results of accidents or incidents. It affects you. The first responders and the accident investigators have regular debriefs with mental health professionals. If you're just looking at a disturbing picture, you're not being fair to yourself and you are cumulatively hurting yourself. Please think very carefully before doing that, and think even more carefully before forwarding it to 50 of your nearest and dearest friends. Fun social media posts can lead to your job loss or even loss of your license. I've mentioned about employers being able to look at things, but for example, if one of your friends posts a picture of you being under the weather following a large party, and somebody realizes that you violated an 8-hour bottle to throttle rule, as an example, that can lead to a permanent loss of your medical or your license. So think very, very carefully about what you post and make sure that your friends consider the same sorts of things that you do. Not always an easy thing, but important. So what are the takeaways? I love this sign. I think this is something that we should have front and center of every single cockpit, and it certainly should be on every single piece of electronics, tablets, phones, computers. It's very easy to make a post in haste. It's not quite so easy to get rid of it. So think very carefully. Social media can have incredible benefits, but it can be very easy to dig yourself a hole that's very difficult to get out of. think about what you post. Remember that it's very easy to misinterpret written language, especially if you are writing something in a hurry before you go and fetch the kids or before you have to leave for a flight. Always remember, you are an adult. And that means don't feed the trolls. When you come across people that are being antagonistic, don't prolong the agony, just ignore them. And understand and read the small print of the sites that you frequent. Know what they're doing with your data, and understand that law enforcement regularly looks at all of this sort of thing, as do employers, as do cyber criminals, and stay out of trouble. Once again, there is all of the Mayday information. Please, if you feel that you need to talk to us, please reach out. We're very, very happy to help. And I hope that there was some value in what I've shared with you this evening.
Thanks, Ari. Yeah, we very often forget to think about that. I mean, I think all of us have seen some gruesome pictures and photos of the aftermath of aviation accidents and incidents. I mean, definitely some of them you wish you can unsee. And, you know, I always think of people like Sankey and the guys that deal with it every single day. You know, that's kind of their reality. You know.
Absolutely. I think it's important to note that it's broader than just the aviation stuff. There's all sorts of nasty stuff. You don't do yourselves any favors. And I think we have, as South Africans, a bit of a culture of we're tough, we can take it. There is definitely a very good argument for minimizing what you see of that sort of thing. It's important for the investigators. It's important from time to time for people to remember the consequences of a truly grave error, but you don't really need to see all of the gory details, and I do mean gory. And yeah, my hat is off to all of the first responders who have to deal with that on a daily basis, and people like Sankey for everything that they do. I think it's a part of aviation that is very underappreciated. We owe our first responders and our search and rescue people a huge debt.
Yeah, absolutely. Gary, thanks for that. Enjoyed your presentation. Appreciate it. Okay, guys. So this is the part of the webinar right towards the end where we answer some questions. And I think all our panelists must have done such a brilliant job because I can't find all that many questions. I mean, there's a lot of discussions about, you know, go rounds and airlines versus private pilots, kind of how it's built in and what's expected of you, which I think is very, very important. And I think that's possibly exactly what Caroline was alluding to when she was saying, you know, watch the space. It's definitely an area that's being worked on. And I'm sure that's probably one of the points that Kobus Terin can give us feedback on one of our future webinars, and if that's something that's being discussed within the GAS. The two questions really that I'm finding, and guys, please send your questions while I'm going through this. It's definitely not too late. And Lauren, it looks like you're the lucky winner of our two questions we have so far. Okay, so quickly, gravity waves are a new term to me. Can you share a little more on their cause and effects? Is that like an extremely long explanation, or is that something you can do in 30 seconds?
In particular, a quick one. It's the same mechanism or feature as a mountain wave. It's just really higher up in the atmosphere. It's more tropopause mesosphere region. And it's normally formed like if you would put a pebble into a flat pond. So you need a drop of energy or increase in energy. So that would cause, for example, thunderstorms that break through your tropopause and break through back down again. So that effect will then send out a wave in your atmosphere, and that will start propagating, and so it's done. It can even circulate the globe a couple of times. It all depends on how much energy you have at that moment. That's the short and the sweet of it, but please email me if you do need anything more on that.
I'm sure there's some YouTube videos on it as well.
Yeah. There's a lot of information out there about it.
Yeah, another one does SAWS have courses that can help pilots understand the websites better and ways to take the theory we learn during our exams and applying them on a day-to-day basis, especially for those who don't necessarily fly every day. So courses, anything?
Not per se from source, but I can always start. So again, if you could email me, or I can have your email address, you and I can always be the first to make a standing course out there. Thank you for your idea. That's actually a really, really great thing.
Yeah, I think there's
but
a lot
email
of
me,
room.
I'll help you.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of room for that kind of thing, and things we learn through this. Guys, okay, I think that's pretty much it for the evening. Thank you everyone for joining us. I think it was great. Thanks to the guys from Messe Frankfurt. Thanks to Neil and everyone else involved in the background. I think you guys are doing an amazing job. From my side, thank you very much. We hope to see you guys soon. Remember, as I said the last time, the only thing you need to do is next time you see something like this come up, just let your friends know, your 2 or 3, 4, 5 best aviation buddies. Get them on here. Let them join in on the knowledge with us. That's really all you need to do. That's all we charge. We charge entry fee by bringing some of your friends along. Hey, Neil?
100%. What another amazing webinar, guys. I think I say it every single webinar we host, but I learned so much. And Lauren, geez, those images you shared, I wish my father-in-law was on. He was in the weather service for years. And I thought, geez, I must get him on for the next one so he can come watch you. He'll absolutely love that.
Yeah, Neil, why aren't you paying your entry fee? We're telling other people and you're not doing it. Come on, man.
Speak to Annelie, she's the boss.
Just when you want me to be the boss, Neil.
That's it. Yeah. And then I think we need to give a special awesome job and a big shout out to Caroline. I think you brought something really fresh to the webinars, to the webinar tonight. And thank you for being part of the team. And I really look forward to hearing what else you've got to share with us in future webinars. So Caroline, thank you so much. And then Sankey, as always, it's such a pleasure to have you on. We're very sad about your situation and we wish you everything of the best. And then Ari, I promise you it wasn't me. I didn't send that message. It wasn't. I think it was Anli. But you know, I think it was such a wonderful way to end the webinar tonight. And it's really food for thought, you know, with I've got a 18-year-old and an 8-year-old in the home. And I must say the 8-year-old picks up all the bad habits from his brother and sister. And we just need to watch it. I think we become too complacent, and it's okay that they've got the screen. And or they're spending so much time in front of the screen, but you don't actually know what they're doing. So yeah, thank you for just that reminder. I think it's so important. And then yeah, I think the big thing is just to thank all the participants tonight. Thank you for joining us again, for giving us your time. You know, I think we're also busy during this period, but we are most appreciative. And please look out for the next webinar that we will most probably host in the next few weeks. So keep a lookout on the wires for that. And the recording of tonight will be made available by tomorrow or latest by Monday. You'll all receive it. So from my side and from everybody on the webinar tonight, thank you. And enjoy the rest of the evening. Take care,
Dankie
everybody.
Right,
julle.
everyone. Cheers.
Bye bye.
Bye all.
Cheers.